evening, everyone. How are you? Thanks for coming and spending a little time with me this evening. I appreciate it. Tonight, we are going to talk about two trials that are happening right now. And mostly, we're going to focus on the victims here at this channel and not so much the murderers of those children. So that is why I named it Justice for Gannon and Justice for JJ and Tylee. Because we want to remember them, the victims of these tragedies. Hello, Mystery Christy. How are you? Andrea, nice to see you. So how many of you have actually been following the Letitia Stout trial? Hey, TTM fangirl. I know I have tried to listen to this trial quite a bit. I have not been able to listen to as much as I would like. And I'm just going to fix a setting here. So 1 second. Okay. So this week, the Letitia Stout trial wrapped up. This has been a fairly long trial. And she was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. So one of the things that we want to highlight on the show is the victims and their families and how these tragedies affect them. Hey, True Crime with Shannon, how you doing? Sterling, how are you? Miss Mula, nice to see you. So tonight I want to talk a little bit about Gannon. That sweet little boy that lost his life for no reason. We've got a pandemic going on here where parents, step-parents are murdering their children. We got to try to understand why this is happening and how we can put a stop to it, if we can. So Gannon was a sweet little boy who lived with his mother and then at times lived with his father and his stepmother. Now, from what I understand, Al, his father, worked and work often took him away from home. So he worked away from home a lot. So Gannon was with his stepmother quite a bit. Now there's a relationship between stepmother and mother. The stepmother, Letitia, did not like Gannon's mother. I feel like she was resentful and hateful towards the mother herself. And because of this, Gannon took the blunt of her weirdness, psycho-ness, whatever you want to call it. Whatever you want to call it. She's messed up somehow. Let's just say it that. But they did not find that she was insane when she did this. So, from what I'm understanding, and True Crime with Shannon, maybe you can help me here. Part of what she did to this child is give him enemas on a regular basis. Apparently, this had been done to her when she was a child, and she thought it was normal to do this. Well, I can say it is not normal. Definitely not normal. So one day, yeah, she did. True Crime with Shannon said, yeah. So one day when Al, Gannon's father, was out of town, I don't know if she kept Gannon home that day or used the excuse that he was sick or if he was actually sick. That really didn't truly come out in the trial, I don't think. But her story was that Gannon was sick the night before and that morning, so she kept him home. That was the last morning that Gannon had, was with this monster. No, I don't have the candle video, but I did hear that she stated that Gannon knocked over a candle, started a small fire, put it out, and I'm not sure where it went from then. Because like I said, I got to hear bits and pieces of it. So I'm learning right along with you. Fuzz, sorry. I do know that her story, the murderer's story, changes a lot. It goes from he went to play and he never came back to, well, somebody took him. In the end, I know she was trying to say that her alter ego killed him. It's crazy. The hours and hours and hours of audio that were played at this trial between Al and Letitia, him trying to find out what happened to his son, and her stating she needed immunity. I need immunity. I need immunity. That's what she kept saying to him in the beginning. And it was crazy. She never gave a straight answer. You know, she just kept yelling and hollering. And in the end, we know that she stabbed him, Gannon, in his bedroom. She stabbed him 18 times. And we know that there was defensive wounds and that he was alive for a portion of those stab wounds. But that wasn't enough. Then she shot him. On top of that, this poor little boy. Hey, Grizz, how you doing? So, you know, if that isn't bad enough for, was he 10? True Crime with Shannon? I think I saw that he was 10 years old. You're in a house with a woman that you're supposed to trust as a parent figure, and she goes and stabs you 18 times. So, I mean, I did get to see that part of the trial where they had the pictures of the blood spatter. And that blood spatter was all over that room. It's crazy. You know, and to stab him 18 times and then shoot him, you would think that would be the most horrific part of this whole story, but it's not. It's not. Yeah, 18 times, Renee, she stabbed him. The most bizarre part of the story is that she takes this little boy and she puts him in a suitcase, puts him in her car, van, whatever you want to call it, and drives him. Now he is deceased he is deceased in the suitcase. Drives him 13,000 miles to Florida and dumps this suitcase underneath a bridge. The only reason Gannon's body was found is because it was the year for that bridge to be inspected. Otherwise, he may not have been found for a very, very, very long time. Well, yeah. True crime with Shannon. She did. She dumped him locally first. Then got his body, put it in a suitcase, and drove it 13,000 miles to Florida. What kind of monster does that? What did that little boy ever do to her to make her stab him 18 times, shoot him, put him in a concealed area, wait until she can go back and get his body, and then drive him 13,000 miles and dump him underneath a bridge? Thank God. Yeah, thank God they found him in Florida. This was probably the hardest trial I have ever watched. It's right up there with the Danielle Van Dam trial. Yeah. I mean, we got some doozies going on right now. I was starting to get nervous on Monday, and I'm like, why isn't this jury coming back? This should be a slam dunk case with the evidence that was given. You know? And when the guilty verdict finally came out, I think all of us were extremely relieved and happy that justice for Gannon was finally here. And then the judge asked about sentencing, and prosecution said, we're ready. The family's here. They're ready to do their impact statements. We're ready to go. And I think the judge asked for a half an hour break. They came back and they started in on their impact statements. And boy, I can tell you, I don't think I had a dry eye through any of them. They were all so powerful. But I want to play here a clip of Gannon's mother talking. Because, like I said, this channel is about the victims and their families and what they go through when a situation like this happens. So I am going to share my screen here. And this clip is 2.5 minutes. This is his mom giving an emotional statement after, well, that was the arrest. Hang on one second. While I look for that one, we're going to listen to a little bit of what Gannon's dad says.
Just scrolling?
Nope. Chopping it.
You gotta wait for the ads to go through.
STAUCH. I'm gonna start with something from my wife. Not to go out of order, but she didn't think she could make it through it. So this is my wife, Melissa, and these are her words. Some may say or think that I wouldn't be here if it weren't for Tisha. In part, that may be accurate, and I would be okay with that, because then Gannon would still be here. I too know the pain of losing a child. There is no greater pain. We are now lifelong grief partners, as this is a lifelong journey of pain with 2 sons waiting for us in heaven. I have some words from my daughter Elena. I will address in the middle of my speech, but they're written in yellow, so I don't know if I can leave it to a child. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever God may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody, but unbowed. Beyond this place of the wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. The poem I read is named Invictus, translated from the Latin means unconquerable. I quoted this same poem at Gannon's memorial here in Colorado Springs back in August of 2020. Why August of 2020? When his body was ripped to shreds on January 27th? Well, as we heard testimony to, his body was found 1,370 miles away. And then the process to identify his maggot-infested remains withheld him from us until July 2020. As I stated in my testimony on the stand, Gannon was born severely premature and barely filled my two hands the first time I held him. At the end of his life, after his body was cremated into a pile of ashes, he was ultimately no bigger than the first time I held him. As brutal as the wait became, I'm thankful to God and the bridge workers for finding him and returning his precious body to Landon and I. I quote the poem Invictus again, not to boast of my strength and perseverance, Your Honor, but to say to the world, I alone can control my actions and reactions. Your Honor, I refuse to allow anger to poison my soul and orient my life to a pursuit of vengeance. I refuse to allow pain to carry me through each day and promote the pursuit of medicinal retribution toward the offender. I refuse also to let my mind be clouded by inconsistency and emotions that deter me from the purpose in this life. Your Honor, the price I pay each and every day for this resolve is to only get pieces and parts of my son. And consistently through time.
On mute. Sorry. I paused it there because I didn't know if everybody heard what he said, and that's powerful, what he said. He gets emotional, and he's talking about the pieces and the parts of his son that he did get back. So we're going to continue on here just a moment.
But the pain is too heavy, and the anger too overwhelming, and the desire for vengeance too vexing. Instead, each and every day I pursue peace. I seek joy in my life and let the love I have for my wife and family flow in and out of me like a mighty wave. As I told Tisha regularly at the end of our relationship, my joy is mine alone, and she cannot rob me of that. I will learn to experience G more and more as time goes on, but as I did my best to instill into his precious soul, love, joy, service, and kindness are the pathway to take in life. This picture shows that in the 4th grade, he already had a mind for service.
Now, just so you guys know, throughout this, he puts pictures up on a screen, but we're not able to see those pictures. So, oh, thanks, Heather. Still going. So you'll hear him reference these things, but at no time does the camera pan over there.
Throughout these past 3 years since Gannon was beaten and drugged, carved up, shot at point-blank range, and discarded like yesterday's garbage, I've encountered many people that would figuratively do the same to me. I've been questioned, compared as Tisha did to my abusive father, and ridicule for my approach to finding Gannon. I hope now that the world has seen that I was assigned the most arduous task of finding Gannon in the only place that was possible for him to have been, in the mind of a killer. Were my efforts fruitful? I believe so. But from the moment I did not see the Volkswagen Tiguan, or however you say it, at French Elementary on that Tuesday evening, a clear direction for finding Gannon pointed directly and precisely at Tisha. While others online, some who are even in the courtroom today, question my perceived lack of effort or concern, I stood still and stood firm in knowing that only one person had the information needed to find Gannon. Now I say woe to the person who questions a father's resolve when the safety and well-being of his children are at stake. I did not waver. I did not falter in the pursuit, nor did I allow the mentality of the mob to shake me. But it was only by the grace of God that Gannon's precious body was finally found. In Mark 4:39 of the Bible, in the middle of a storm, Christ arose and rebuked the wind and said, "Peace, be still." In times of trial in my life, from seeing my father being taken away in handcuffs, seeing that sweet 1 pound, 6 ounce baby boy for the to a Ziploc bag after he was born, from seeing my father being taken away in handcuffs, seeing that sweet 1 pound, 6 ounce baby boy for my firstborn son being put into a Ziploc bag after he was born to help regulate his body temperature, and now searching for and never finding my son again. I have but one choice, and that is the times of trial and tribulation to have that peace and be still. As I alluded to previously, that stillness does provide an easy target for many who do not understand peace, hope, and even faith. Some, including Tisha, feasted on my stillness, attacked, and yes, left several scars. One of these scars comes in the form of the financial and residential ruin that began in the early days of this ordeal. I'm just going to skip this part because I don't want to make this any more about me. I'm not seeking any restitution, Your Honor. For the $1.50 a month I received from the defendant, Tisha, would just keep me connected to her for the rest of my life, and I don't want that. So absolutely no restitution, Your Honor.
Thank God that told me I was on mute. So I'm like, this part is huge. What he just said, he had a big, long part of his victim's speech set about restitution. Okay? And there were other charges against her for this. Because of his statement stating that he does not want any restitution from her, because he does not want to be tied to her, they dropped those charges. And you'll see that come in here. You'll see that come in here in just a minute. The murderer of which I speak was not always such. When I met Tisha, she was beautiful, extremely intelligent, as many have testified to, and a seemingly successful woman. A far cry from the nappy-headed, murderous, narcissistic, and arrogantly flippant human being that sits in our midst today. Having a background in teaching, social work, higher education, certified babysitting, and endless amount of credentials, that should render one trustworthy when it relates to the safety of children. However, although she remains too much a coward to state the facts of what she did to Gannon, too much a lily-livered, self-centered, pathological liar to ask for forgiveness, and too much the facade of one who actually cares for others to have taken her frustration out on an adult or one who could defend themselves, she will one day give an account through her words or through her time. Sending pictures of Gannon sleeping to Landon and I was telling, as the boy looked pale and absent of the energies that so defined him. This is what a happy, healthy little boy looks like when he's sleeping in the next picture. That's what a little boy sleeping looks like. These pictures on the screen are of a happy, healthy little boy that's sleeping sweetly, healthily where he lay. The impact Tisha had as a result of this heinous crime stretches far wider and far deeper than I could depict in my statement today.
Two other people torn to pieces as a result of this are Gannon's sister Lena and Harley. Speaking of Harley, I feel as though I've lost two children as a result of this tragedy, one of which I will never see on this earth again, and the other which I do not know if a relationship can be salvaged with. Now for Lena. The video you saw as submitted in evidence, her bebopping down the street, is actually an excellent depiction of Lena and her happiness and her joy in life. She is very loving, trusting, and at times way too social. Normally, you might be concerned by your little girl talking to the utility guy working in the front yard, but in this case, it was the inside of her own home that was of grave concern. Nonetheless, her loss, Lena's loss, is like none I can even imagine. She lost her big brother, her only brother at the time. I still do not know if she has fully processed or fully understands the gravity of the situation, but regardless has pressed forward and is thriving as best as she can. I am so proud of her. And these are her words. Once again, they're in yellow, so I'll do the best I can. And this is what I asked her if she wanted to say anything to Tisha, and this is what she said in her sweetest mind that she has. That you do not do that to people, especially your stepkids. And that it is never all right to do these things. How sweeter of a response can you get?
To me, that was one of the most emotional parts of this. This is his youngest daughter's words. And she's telling this woman it's not okay to do this to your stepchildren. And that what you did is not right. We always say from the mouths of babes comes the truth. In that moment, that was the truth.
Now for my precious, premature firstborn son, Gannon. I never in my wildest dreams would have ever thought you'd be in danger, buddy, or I know I wouldn't have not left you. At home with what turned out to be your murderer and the last person to ever see you on this earth. I'm so sorry.
I can tell you that at this moment on the feed, you not only saw Al and Tisha and her attorney, but you got to see the judge's reaction. And the judge cried several times during Al's testimony. How could you not? This man just said, if I had known that I would have left you in your own home with your murderer, the amount of guilt that he feels bringing this woman into his children's life and then having her take his son's life away. He is very, very strong man, but he lays his emotions out in this testimony, and I'm so glad that he did. Yeah, the judge was amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I know this might be a little frustrating because I play a little bit and I stop, and I play a little bit and I stop and talk to you, but this is how I get around using another network's video. So we're going to get through it. We're about halfway through. So I'm going to continue on here.
Through a father's eyes, children are truly a gift from God, and among the best and most perfect creations God can make. Your Honor, I do need to clear one thing up with the defense. It was said both in the opening statement and in the closing. Somehow Gannon has been compared to a demon. And I understand the process. I do. But if they want to take the case up of Gannon being a demon, I will line people up from Alaska to Denver to Colorado Springs, all the way to South Carolina to testify against them. Gannon was nobody's demon. I don't care how much anyone was abused or anything. He was not anyone's demon.
On the slide, it says we're going to talk about Gannon. We're going to talk about JJ and Tylee. One of the similarities in both cases, the children were demons, zombies, something like that. It's crazy how these people can think children can be demons is absurd. It makes me so angry. And so does my window, because the sun's shining in and it's glaring on my screen. So I'm going to have to get a blackout shade. But all right, here we go. Hang on, everybody.
Oh, okay. Gannon was truly my buddy. Very recently, before he died, the most alarming thing he did was call me dad. Up until age 10 or 11, I was daddy. But in the last months of his life, I was just dad. A signal that he was coming into those junior high, pre-teenage years. Another amazing thing that is he finally started asking me regularly to play ball with him. He was never too much into sports for most of his life, but that last 6 to 9 months, he really started enjoying playing ball. Some of the most memorable times were him running little 5-yard football routes in the street in front of our house. Most of the time he dropped the ball, but he kept asking, let's do it again. I almost had it that time, Daddy. Oh, and that Nintendo Switch. One of the most difficult pieces of evidence to give up was his Nintendo, because that probably has the most of him on it. Knowing I may never see that again is truly devastating. For him, many of his games were not just games, but a challenge to overcome, as I made him beat specific games before I would buy him the next one. I remember not long before he died, him beating the old school Zelda game he had. As he felt he was getting close to beating the final monster, he paused it, ran upstairs, and we sat at the kitchen island, and he beat it right there together with me. He was as excited as I ever saw him. With all of that and all of the pain of only being able to see him play through the one YouTube video he was able to make, which I'm about to play, I can sleep in peace at night because the father I am and the son he is was culminated as always in our final embrace as he ran out of arms and downstairs to watch Pokemon, I in his heart and he in mine. If we could try to play that video, just maybe the first 10 or 15 seconds of it.
Hey guys, and today I'm about to play some Sonic Maniac.
Alright, let's zoom in.
And yes, cameraman is right here. Derpa Solar White Gaming. And yes, sign up for our channels. We're going to be doing a lot of these together. Give a shout out to him, his channel, Freedom.
Thank you. That was one of the many he hoped to make and the only one he was actually able to make. I do want to add something that I don't have in my speech that me and Landon already had a conversation about this, and I owe her an apology as well as she already gave me one, that we allowed Tisha to manipulate us into some of the pain and disagreements that we had between one another. And Landon, I'm sorry. But I will say this, Tisha was not the glue to keep everything together. She was not the answer. And this is not a jab, Landon, okay? But Lena still lives with me. Tisha, you were not the answer. Now, Your Honor, if I have any influence on the final sentence for Tisha, first I ask to be stripped of my last name immediately. It's nauseating and infuriating to hear her called Miss Stout this past 3 years. Secondly, I ask that for every mile she drove Gannon across the country, she spent 1 day in solitary confinement. I think that take us in between 3 and 4 years. After that journey is complete, I recommend her sentence be equal to every year she stripped off of Gannon's life, which for the average male in America right now is 77. So that would give her 66 more years in addition to the 11 he lived. Lastly, for every year of Harley's life that she abusively manipulated that child, she should have an additional year of prison. Adds 21 years to the total. I think without parole, that should suffice. I pray all.
Powerful, y'all. Oh my goodness. When he said that and I heard that, I lost it. He's specifically telling that judge, not only for Gannon's sake, but Haley is Letitia's daughter. And he's saying that all 3 kids were harmed by her severely. His son who died, his youngest daughter, but not only that, her own daughter. And no, I found out that the judge cannot strip her of her last name. Once she went into the correctional facility, they can't change their names. So unfortunately, unless there's a loophole, she's going to be known as Letitia Stout.
Also, that Tisha lives the fullest and happiest life that any inmate possibly can live. I also pray that every night before she falls asleep, her last breath before she drifts off sounds just like the breath that she describes Gannon breathing as life left his body. And that all through her sleep, she dreams of all the fun they had at Disney and other places we went throughout our time together. And that every morning as she is about to wake, the end of her dream, the last words Gannon spoke or screamed or cried, "Tisha, stop! You're hurting me. Why, Tisha? Daddy, help me. I want my mommy. Why couldn't you let her just be a mama's boy? That's all he wanted to be. He just loved his mama. I wish she would tell me what those words were so I would know." And then as she speaks those words, the sound of a gunshot goes off and she wakes. Every day and night, I pray she relives just those moments and then wakes up to a nice, warm, and kosher breakfast. In conclusion, I would like to share a picture of Gannon in his final state and find a resting place, and thank everyone that has had a positive impact on my family and I. To everyone that has shared the positive impact Gannon has had on your life, from a proud and broken father, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. I'd like to pause until we can get that last photo up.
Oh, breaks my heart hearing that all over again. Oh my goodness. The strength that man had to stand up there and say all of that. I hope she does have nightmares about it. You know, and then for him to say something like, and then she wakes up to a nice warm breakfast. I don't know how he formed his words and statements, but it was perfect and it was right on. Right on. So I'm not going to play anymore because they have a little difficulty getting the picture up that he wants shown. And he just says thank you at the end. So that one I'm going to close out. I'm showing you these victim impact statements because as gut-wrenching as it is for us, we can never imagine what it is for the parents. You know, we sit here as an outsider and we listen to these stories and we cry with the families, but the pain that they're really feeling, it doesn't get articulated very well until you watch a statement like that. Then we get just a little brief glimpse of what they're really going through. It's heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. The fact that this man still doesn't know. He even in here, he's telling her, I want to know what his last words were. Because up until he hears it from her, he can only imagine what was said. So yes, Miracle Hearts, you're right. She's on a kosher diet. She sent some rant somewhere about not getting her diet and her food right. And you know what? Too bad, lady. You're in jail. Prison now. So we're going to watch one more. And I found the one I wanted. It's almost 8 minutes long, but this is Gannon's mother's statement. And like I said, we're all about the victims and their families on this channel. Our hearts go out to them. We try to understand what they're going through. But once you see her statement, it's a rough one too. So let me get it up here.
GoDaddy is a
And get through the ads. All right, here we go. You're right, Crystal. She did every mother proud.
Hello, Your Honor. My name is Landon Bullard, also referred to as Hyatt in this case, but Bullard's B-U-L-L-A-R-D. I miss you, Gannon, and I love you to the moon and back again. I know every day you're with me and your sisters, but that will never be taken away. The ache that I have for you, to hold you, to hug you, to tell you how much I love you, and to see your smile and your innocence. I remember all the pain your dad and I suffered with having children. It was never easy, and we were always fearful through the process. On September the 29th, 2008, our lives were forever changed. Our first biggest blessing came into the world, weighing only 1 pound and 6 ounces. You fought all the odds and developed a personality and a smile that's larger than life. You became my hero that day. You forever changed my heart and my life, and that will never change. That is something that can never be taken away from me. You came into this world fighting. And unfortunately, you left this world fighting. Your Honor, she fought against someone that he loved and trusted. Someone that myself and Albert both trusted and loved. Someone who can never understand what it means to love or trust anyone but herself. For more than 3 agonizing years, I've often wondered what I may say, or if I would even be able to. For 3 years, I have questioned every single possibility and scenario. For 3 years, I have tried to forgive you, but I can't. I want to. But no parent should have to bury their child. No parent should have to see or hear the horrific things you have done. To the whole family, she has taken away the most precious gift in this world. Not just my family, not Al's family, but your own family. She destroyed dozens of lives of people who never wanted to believe that she could have done this. She knew how special Gannon was, and she knew what meant to most to me. I, in my heart, can never understand her hatred and insecurities when it came to me. I did love her. Mother.
She flat out says that she loved this woman. She trusted this woman with her child. And this woman hated her enough to take her child away from her. Was it jealousy? I mean, look at her. Landon is beautiful. At one time, Letitia was too. Exactly. So was it a one-sided fight she didn't know she was in? What I want to know, I really do, I want to know from this murderer, what was it? Why did she hate the mother? Why did she hate the son and kill him so viciously? Was she that insecure? Could she not handle the fact that Al was away for work and the life she thought she was going to have wasn't what it was? And for her to sit there and have her head down, roll her eyes at Landon. If it were me, I probably would have walked over there and slapped her. The control that this mother and father have is amazing. Okay, let's go back to it.
Mother to mother, I trusted her with my children while trying to survive a complicated life with my third child. And she used every opportunity for the narrative of my life to try to take pieces of my life. When she already took some of it, that still wasn't enough. She searched. I lost my place. I don't know where I'm at now. She searched so hard for love when all along she had it, but she took it for granted. I didn't hold anger against you then. I still kept my heart open to her. You had so much love from Lena and Gannon, from Harley, her own daughter, that you willingly subjected to the chance of serving time for her crimes. Such an indicator of her inability to love anyone herself. You had support, appreciation for me, even when we couldn't see eye to eye, because I valued her for helping me with our children when I physically couldn't. Even when I was fighting for my kids, as you wrote, a false smear campaign against me and my children, and also Al. For me, I still appreciated that they were loved by you. So I thought. She had everyone fooled. She projected abuse and addiction claims against all of us, not just me, when all along she was the one harming innocent children. Anything to take the light off, manipulating us, breaking my kids, and murdering my son. I can't say that she ruined my life, because that will be some form of sick victory for her. Because even through this process, it's been a game to her. The people who listened doesn't know her style or her sly jabs. She's even made at Albert and I. They do not know the significance of certain things she says or does. But we do. Instead of allowing her to take that power of hurting me further, I wanted to tell you this. Let me tell you what Gannon has done. Even to this day, even after you murdered him and she tried to taint any positive image of him, he has caused families and communities to come together. Children and adults have given their life to Christ. He has called unity in times of trial. He is a hero. She even tried to steal that away. A cape, huh? The one image of Gannon that was created for the world. After it went national, TV begging for the return of my son, my hero. How dare her? How truly sick and cruel is she? You stole so much from this world. Gannon's cousins, aunts, uncles, sisters, new siblings, grandparents, and friends are missing a huge portion of their lives without Gannon. Lena is missing her brother. Your Honor, I've never seen a bond between two siblings so close as theirs. She had to take that. Why? I'm afraid we may never know that answer, will we? I show his baby sister Nova pictures and videos of Gannon so she will always remember who he is, because she stole him from us. He is not forgotten and never will be. And it's so sad to sit here today and face her, a person even Gannon loved, one that I know while she was attacking and killing him and fought for his life, he defended himself against her, still loving her. A love she never deserved from him for what she has done. While she is too much of a coward to even come forward with the truth, she owes it to Gannon. But the lack of remorse and the lack of respect to Gannon through this child, her lack of compassion shows me that we were all wrong. She manipulated all of us, and never loved Gannon, Lena, or Harley. I've sat here for over a month having to listen to her sick lies, even as she tried to destroy who I was and Albert as a father. I've had to sit and listen and watch every reenactment of images no one wants left in their mind. You wanted to leave us with that, knowing it would torture us. But you underestimated me. I am Landon, Gannon's mom.
Hi, Mark.
I am Landon, Gannon's mom. You tell her. I was so proud of her when I heard her statement. So proud of her. Oh, Tisha wanted to destroy Landon just because Al still loved a piece of her as his children's mother. She couldn't stand the idea of him having a child with her, I guess. Yeah. Judge was very professional, honeybee. Very professional. And I just want to say thank you for becoming a member of the channel. I didn't know about the part where Gannon was born at 1.6 ounces or 1.6 pounds and had a rough start to life. It's sad knowing that he fought his way to stay into this world, and he fought his way again at the end, trying to stay in this world. But she overpowered him. Just sad. It's just sad. And the fact, now, I'm sure we didn't pick up on a lot of things, right? That Letitia said during court. But Landon said she made a lot of jabs and remarks that only her and Al would understand. So up until the end of this woman being convicted, she was still making jabs at that mother and father. It just tears me apart for these families. Yeah, 49 defensive wounds, 18 stab wounds, and shot to death. Oh, thank you, Heather. These stories make me, it just gets to me. And I think part of that is because of my own battle and struggles of getting pregnant with my 2 kids and knowing how badly I wanted children and didn't know if I could have them. And then to have people like this and many, many other stories. I mean, Quentin Simon, Harmony Montgomery, JJ Tylee. It's just, I don't understand it. Don't understand it. Like Al said, kids are a gift from God. And until you
Barnett saying he heard comments here.
struggle with having that child or have something happen to that child when they're born and don't know if they're going to make it, you take it for granted. So, it's just crazy. I mean, in this case, okay, she's definitely got some mental health issues. To the point where she's insane? No. She knew right from wrong. She knew what she was doing when she went and got his body and put it in the suitcase and then put it in the car. She knew it was wrong to do that. She knew after the first stab wound that it was wrong to keep stabbing him. And she definitely knew it was wrong to dump him under a bridge. Yeah. I don't have kids either, and they're a blessing, not a bother. Yeah. They were. Believe me, parenting's not easy. I mean, you don't get a manual to do it. You figure it out as you go. And some things you do right and some things you do wrong. But never once did I ever think of taking my children's life. Not when I fought so hard to have them. Not when I went through all the medication and tests to have them. You know, it's just sad. So I don't know, you guys. You ready to hear some of what the judge said? Because that man held it together. I mean, he cried. He's human. How could you not cry through statements like that? But he held it together and took 10 minutes after statements were done. Said, I need 10 minutes to gather my thoughts. And then started talking. And I'm just bringing up this next clip here. We're not going to watch all of it, but I'm going to let you hear some of it. Ooh, I caught that ad before the sound came on. Yeah, I have a lot of respect for him too.
A parent's worst nightmare is getting a phone call letting them know that something has happened to their child. How much worse must that nightmare be when law enforcement asks not for a picture of your loved one, but rather DNA and dental records? I've also heard it said that one of the worst tragedies a parent can experience is to outlive a child. I have known people, both professionally and personally, who have gone through that. It never leaves them, but the sharpness of the pain does diminish to some extent over time. I cannot fathom the pain Mr. Stout and Ms. Bullard have experienced as a result of the defendant's actions. A sentence in a criminal case such as this will not change the fact that their son's life was taken from them, and no sentence I impose and nothing I say will ever change that fact. Ms. Stout, you betrayed the person you loved enough to marry. You told your husband lies and took away someone he loved. You took away every day that Mr. Stout or Ms. Bullard could have had with their son. When you take a life, regardless of how you do that, you forever alter the future. Neither Mr. Stout nor Ms. Bullard will ever see their son graduate from high school, go through the joy and the pain of that first love, or get married. They will never know what kind of impact their son may have had on the world if only he had lived to become an adult. And had Gannon's body not been found, they never would have known what happened to Gannon. They would always have had a lingering doubt about what happened to Gannon. And I cannot imagine the pain and sense of loss associated with that. You betrayed your daughter, Harley Hunt. I cannot imagine the emotional impact that you have had on her due to your selfish and calculated actions. This is a young woman that trusted you to put her interests above yours. This is a young woman who believed in you and believed you were innocent of this crime right up until the time that you pled not guilty by reason of insanity. And she still loves you.
I, for one, was so happy that he admonished her in his statement about her treatment of her own daughter. Because her daughter is a victim in all of this too. You'll have to excuse the noise the cat got in here. She's scratching. Because what that young lady went through is horrific. She did. She believed her mother up until the point her mother pleaded guilty due to insanity. Can you imagine what she went through when she heard that? Numbing when you think about it. It's bad enough that you killed your own stepson. But to do that to your own daughter, Nobody. You're right, Heather. Nobody wins here.
That's natural for a child, and it doesn't matter how much older they get. You were supposed to protect her. I cannot imagine the guilt she feels or the therapy that she will need to address your portrayal. There is no evidence that she had anything to do with the murder or your cover-up of it, but some people still think that she is somehow involved. She wasn't. The incredible strength of will and courage that it took for her to come in and testify is amazing to me. But she did it because, as she said, it was the right thing to do. And while thankfully she didn't testify, let's not forget about Lena. You betrayed her too. You took her brother from her and forever altered her family dynamics. She will always wonder who she can trust and will always feel that loss. She was there the day you killed Gannon. His body was still in the house when she got back from school. At some point, you even claimed this 8-year-old girl helped you move her brother's body from the basement to the back of your car. That's just simply not true. As she gets older, Lena is going to want to know more, and she's going to want to know if there was something that she could have done to prevent this. I hope she comes to realize that she has no fault in all of this. You betrayed your stepson, and you took his life. You took away everything he was and everything he could ever become. I can't imagine the terror and confusion that he must have felt in the last moments of his life when he knew his life was being taken by someone he trusted to protect it.
All right, everybody. This judge is so amazing in the statement. I've heard a lot of statements made by judges during sentencing, but he truly, truly got this. You know, he pointed out point blank that Harley had nothing to do with this. She had no involvement whatsoever. Yet people still believe that she did. That life is forever altered. And then you have an 8-year-old girl who this woman says helped her carry the suitcase out to the vehicle. How can you do that? How do you do that to all 3 of these kids? You've destroyed them, each one in different ways. And what, for revenge? It's crazy. It's a sad world that we live in. All right, I'm going to play a little bit more.
Your attempt to raise the claim that you did this because of your adverse childhood is also a betrayal of people that have mental health issues. It is no secret that there is a large part of our population that has mental health issues. It's also no secret that our country and our health system could do a much better job addressing mental health issues than it does. However, the number of people with mental health issues who become violent is small, and the number who become murderers is smaller still. Your claim that a mental health issue caused the murder in this case is a disservice to all those who struggle with mental health issues every day. This isn't the first case I have presided over in which sanity or a mental condition of the defendant has been raised as a defense. I have had cases where the defendant's mental condition caused the defendant to act out in a certain fashion. But even in those cases, I have never seen conduct like this. I understand the claim of dissociative identity disorder. I have seen something resembling that, and I have seen defendants with schizophrenic disorders. I can understand those. What I have seen is that the mental condition causes the person to act a certain way, and when they realize what they did, they are astonished by what happened, or they have no memory of what happened. Your claim is that it was another personality that murdered Gannon, but there is no time during the minutes, hours, and days following the murder where Letitia came out and wondered, gee, why am I carrying a body around in my luggage? That just isn't credible. You knew what you were doing. You made a number of clear and conscious decisions to cover or disguise what you had done. Claiming a lack of motive is a common defense tactic, and it can be a sound strategy. The truth is, however, that it only takes a moment to make a bad decision that results in disastrous consequences. And oftentimes, we never know why a defendant chose a particular course of action. However, that does not mean that they did not intend to undertake a course of action. Sometimes, as in this case, the likely explanation is anger. An 11-year-old boy with burns who feels that he's not being taken care of. An 11-year-old boy on the verge of being a teenager. Those of us who have lived through people or kids with that were teenagers, we know how that is. It is not hard to imagine Gannon saying something, "You're not my mom. I want my mom. I want my dad." And that would be enough to make you really angry.
Everything this judge has said has been spot on. He nailed every point so meticulously. And he let her know that what she said was wrong, what she did was wrong, and how they know it didn't happen the way she said it did. This alternate personality. He's completely right. Absolutely right. And I give him 100% credit for laying it on the line and being so calm. I don't know that I could do that, but somehow he has managed to be calm, hasn't raised his voice a whole lot, and maybe that is what's getting through to her. All right.
But anger is not an excuse. A defendant is responsible for the choices they made and the actions they undertook, even though those choices arose out of or were motivated by anger. It's clear that you hated and were jealous of Landon Bullard. You saw yourself as a better mother than she was. It's clear from the evidence that you had some resentment from being left with Mr. Stauch's children. It's clear you had some resentment toward Mr. Stauch because he traveled as part of his job. Some of that manifested as early as Al's assignment in Alaska when you made allegations against the people in his unit. That caused Al to have to return from Alaska. And in one of the phone calls that were played for the jury, you talked about having to take care of his kids while he was away and what a good mother you were. It's clear you felt trapped. You wanted out. You were searching for a new job and a new location in Florida. Mr. Stout had been gone on his new assignment for less than 2 days when the fire in the basement occurred. I can imagine that you saw your whole future consisting of taking care of Mr. Stout's children while he was off doing his thing, and that's not the future that you wanted. I can imagine Gannon at some point after he sustained his burns telling you wanted his real mom and how that comment would have made you angry. You took your frustration and anger for the marriage, the child care, the absence of Al, and even living in Colorado. You took all of that out on Gannon. The evidence suggests you first stabbed Gannon repeatedly, 18 times. Based on the number of defensive wounds, he was clearly conscious for some of that. He was certainly gravely wounded. And chillingly, it would also explain how you were able to mimic the sound of Gannon breathing in one of your sessions with Dr. Lewis. Those were probably close to his last breaths. He was dying but not dead. The evidence could also lead one to conclude that he either fell or rolled off the bed where you shot him in the head and then beat him with the butt of a gun or a baseball bat. That would explain the blood found at different levels on the walls in Gannon's bedroom. I'm also reminded
He had a hard time getting through that part. Oh, Heather, this is a sad story. Sad story. And the judge is perfectly right in this situation. She wasn't happy with where she lived. She wasn't happy that she was stuck at the house with the kids, taking care of the kids, while he was out working, serving our country in the Guard. And I'm doing this way to honor Gannon because the story is tough to hear. You know, as Christy says, it's crazy. I watched the whole thing. Miracle Hearts 2, it was so hard to hear. Hi, Christy Rogers. Yes. Broken heart. All the mothers in the world that are true and good mothers, this breaks their heart for this family. And did you catch what he said here? She stabbed him 18 times, shot him, and then either beat him with the butt of the gun or a baseball bat. And then after this, she hides his body, goes and gets it later, puts it in a suitcase, takes it 1,300 miles to Florida, and leaves the suitcase underneath a bridge. There is a special place in hell for this woman.
of the look you had on your face when you slipped your handcuffs while being transported back to Colorado and attacked Deputy James. I shudder to think that that was probably the last thing that Gannon saw before he died. You have shown no remorse throughout this process. Instead, you've made a choice to build a web of lies. When you gave an interview to Detective Jessica Bethel on January 29 of 2020, you lied to her about Gannon running away and that he was actually taken by a guy named Eduardo. When you explained that to Detective Bethel, you said you needed to lie because you didn't want to face the consequences. You told her that you were trying to come up with a plan about what you should do. And finally, you told her you really thought you could fix this. I think that's true. You lied because you didn't want to face the consequences. You needed to come up with a plan to fix this, and that plan involved covering up what you had done. It involved lie upon lie. But you slipped up at various points and let kernels of truth escape. In one conversation with Mr. Stout, you told him the FBI needed to close the borders of Colorado and needed to close I-95. I-95 doesn't go through Colorado. It's an interstate that runs along the entire eastern seaboard. It's also not far from where you dumped Gannon's body. When questioned by Detective Bethel, you told her that Mr. Stout might also make up some kind of story about you coming at him with a knife. You said you would never use a knife like that. Yet Gannon was stabbed 18 times. Your actions in this case also show a very conscious attempt to avoid responsibility in this case. You started out with the story that Gannon had run away. You gave some hints that it might be related to bath salts or drug use by Gannon. You stayed with that story until you were called into EPSO for an interview. You knew they weren't going to buy the story that Gannon ran away. Then you came up with the abduction. And you stayed with some iteration of that for a long time. But all of those versions had one thing in common. You were always the victim. In one, you're beaten and raped and Gannon was abducted. In one, someone stole Gannon out of a truck in the parking lot. In another, you let someone drive Gannon to a hospital to take care of a head injury that he had after falling off a bike. In all of them, you could claim it wasn't your fault. You were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Then you got arrested. You stuck to the story that it was someone else that took Gannon. During the hours that you spoke with Special Agent Grusing, he told you he thought sometimes good people do bad things and sometimes it's an accident. Then they found Gannon's body. Then you saw the mountain of evidence against you. And this is a mountain the size of Everest. What was your position after that? Well, it was an accident. And you, Letitia, didn't even do it. It was Maria Sanchez. You carefully crafted your new story to continue to avoid responsibility. It also allowed you to take advantage of the out that Mr. Grusing and Mr. Stout suggested much, much earlier when they asked you if this was an accident. Now it was an accident. Your Maria Sanchez personality shot Gannon by mistake because she thought he was an intruder in a cape. Multiple personalities is not credible in this setting, as regardless of how many personalities you have, you only have one body. I have presided over cases where a mental disease or defect prevented a defendant from remembering the course of events, including the commission of the crime. Without exception, those defendants have been terrified when contacted by law enforcement because there was a period of time in their lives that they could not account for. Their body may have sustained an injury, and they don't know how it happened. They may have some new object in their house or on their person, and they have no idea where they got it from. We all have free will, and we all make choices based on that free will. The people who suffer from the mental disorder you claim are terrified because their free will has been taken from them and they are being subjected to things and experiences they don't understand and don't have any recollection of. You didn't behave anything like that. One of the purposes is to impose an appropriate sentence for the criminal conduct that occurred. Another purpose is to punish an offender by imposing a sentence that takes into account the seriousness of the offense. Yet another purpose of sentencing is to prevent crime and promote respect for the law by providing an effective deterrent to others likely to commit a similar offense. Anyone who's been in my courtroom before knows that I've said sentencings are the most difficult thing that I do. That's especially true in cases where someone has lost his or her life. Nothing I or the law can do will ever bring that person back. I have handled hundreds, if not thousands, of criminal cases over the years. I think at this point in my career, I've presided over something like 200 jury trials. I've sentenced hundreds more defendants pursuant to plea agreements. This is not the first murder case that has come before me. This is not the first case I have presided over which involves harm to a child. This is not the first case I have had where a person who was in an unhappy marriage committed a crime. Sadly, statistically, there is a high correlation between violent acts, including murders, and family members. I have had a number of cases which have demonstrated one person's capacity for cruelty toward another human being. I can, however, say without hesitation that the facts in this case are the most horrific I have ever seen. Your conduct in this case deserves the maximum punishment that I can impose under Colorado law. As such, with respect to the charge of first-degree murder after deliberation, I remand you to the custody of the Colorado Department of Corrections for the remainder of your life with no possibility of parole. With respect to the charge of murder in the first degree of a child under 12 by a person in a position of trust, I remand you to the custody of the Colorado Department of Corrections for the remainder of your life with no possibility of parole. Those two sentences will merge. If you have questions about that, you can ask your attorneys. With respect to the charge of tampering with a deceased human body, I'm also going to sentence you to 12 years, followed by a 3-year period of parole. That sentence is to be consecutive to the life sentences that I've already imposed. With respect to tampering with physical evidence, I'm going to impose an 18-month sentence. That sentence is also consecutive to the sentences for the murder charges that I have imposed. I also understand, with the consent of the prosecution, and I'm assuming no objection from the defense, that I will dismiss all the charges in 20 CR 3170, close that out subject to restitution, give the people 49 days for restitution, 14 days for response, and if there's an issue, we will set it within the 90 days, from. I think that resolves all outstanding matters. Is there anything else that the prosecution wishes for me to address?
I have to say, phenomenal job by this judge. I see a lot of your comments saying the same thing, that he needs to teach other judges how to do and say the things he did in the manner which he did. I don't know if she was truly listening. It was hard to tell, but I'm sure she was not happy with what was said. I'm sure she wasn't happy. Because he laid it all on the line for her. This judge even has experience with individuals who have DID and told her that her version of it was completely false. Crazy. And then her attorney asks for her to go to a specific jail for mentally, what is it? Unstable people with mental health conditions. And the judge was like, I don't decide that. Department of Corrections decides that. She's going to go wherever they send her. Crazy. She needs to go to one of the roughest places that they have there. Ugh. Gannon's mother, we played that earlier, Christy. Yeah, she did excellent job. Dean, I don't know how someone could live with themselves after doing that. It's all about her. Like he said, she has absolutely no remorse whatsoever for doing this. And he knows that she remembers everything. If she did, she either wouldn't remember or she would have seen and known and still didn't say a word. So even if she had it, she was still guilty. Right. The host goes to jail. But he called her out on the whole thing. He gave her specifics as to what these people who truly have this condition go through. And told her flat out, that's not what she had. He has pegged her. Yes, he did. Yeah. If you haven't seen the Maria Sanchez video, go check it out. She's not going to win an award for Best Actress, I can tell you that. And she did. She changed her appearance to try to convince the jury that she had alternate personalities. They didn't fall for it either. Let's see here. Yep, he needs to teach other judges. Yep. Throw her in a pit full of snakes and spiders. And that's what I'm worried about. She thinks she's gonna, oh my goodness. She's gonna get this in the appeal. I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. They can appeal all they want, but this judge covered his bases when it came to her trial, and I don't see any reason for an appeal. Okay, I should back up here. Because there were some things the defense did that were like, what? And this was one of them. Their expert witness, that doctor, she only sent the email with her reports because the defense told her to, and the defense is the one that typed it up. Yeah. I don't think she's crazy. Not in the way that some people are. Some people truly lose it and then do something like this. I don't think that was her. I think she planned it. She intended to kill Gannon. So I'm seeing a couple of you agree with me. No appeal, no appeal. Yeah. Like I said in the beginning, there's an epidemic of parents murdering their children. And I don't know what we have to do to help stop it. Have a good night, honeybee. Thank you so much for being here. I don't know what we have to do to stop it, but it's getting out of hand. Every day we're hearing about another child missing or found murdered. Like I said, there's a special place in hell for her. I know we were supposed to talk about JJ and Tylee, but this case, since we have a resolution, we do have justice for Gannon. Because this woman will never step foot out of a prison again. And that's what's important. Especially in our community. We hear of all of these cases that don't have a resolution. Well, this one does. And when things like this happen and a person is truly punished for what they did, we have to be thankful for that. Because there's so many cases that don't have that resolution yet. I'm telling you, y'all, this is a tough community to be in. To hear these stories over and over again. And I wish there was a way we knew why this happens. So we could put a stop to it. Because these kids don't deserve to be killed. So, what I am going to say about JJ and Tylee, I'll have to do another live on them. But what I am going to say is the state rested. The defense asked for some time with their defendant. They got about a half an hour. They came back and said they do not believe that the state met the burden of proof and that they had no witnesses and they rested their case. So this goes to the jury. So we are going to be on another verdict watch. If you thought this case was bad, whew, the Lori Vallow Daybell trial and what happened to JJ and Tylee are just as horrific, if not more so. But we'll get into that next week. Especially since we're going to be on a verdict watch. Thank you all for joining me tonight. Just want to say justice for Gannon. It's happened. She is now in prison where she belongs for the rest of her life. Tell your friends. Make sure you're here on Friday. We have a very special guest with us on Friday. It's the father of Kaylin Oling. She had been missing for quite a while. And she was found murdered. And months later, they finally found her. They just recently had her funeral. And he is going to come on and tell her story. So we actually have her father coming on and telling her story. And then keep your ears open because it's either going to happen this weekend or early next week. We have the mother of Jennifer coming on. And this is another case. Beautiful young girl missing. They have not found her yet. But Jennifer's mother is coming on to tell her story. With both cases, we're going to need some help. Jason, Kaylin's father, has a petition going. He's looking for signatures. I put it in the Facebook group. I'm going to make sure that I put it on the community page. So if anybody wants to sign, go ahead. He could use the help. He's trying to force the prosecutor's hand, and he believes he knows who killed his daughter, and they're trying to get the prosecutor to charge him. With Jennifer's story, we're going to need help getting that out and about, because all her mom wants is Jennifer back for a proper burial. That's what she wants right now. Once that happens, then she's going to want the justice for Jennifer. But, so stay tuned. Let everybody know that that's coming up. These two stories are not stories that everyone hears about. They have not gotten any media coverage. Both families have Facebook groups. That's how I found them. And I'm helping to get their story of their loved one out and about and shared. So, have a good night. Create a chain reaction. Do something small, an act of kindness for a stranger. Put a smile on their face. That's my wish and hope for everyone. If we create that little chain reaction, maybe we can make some people's days brighter. Thank you all again for joining me. Have a good night.